so that you can have different types of energy sources on this grid moving around and having the grid talk to each other. There's trading money associated with that. And that's a process that's initiated through Department of Energy. There's already been a funding announcement sent forward, and there's lots of interest from the utility sector to go after this money. Well, here's some. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time talking about tax credits because I think that this is pretty exciting stuff that's happening. One is that there are now what are termed the Clean Renewable Energy Bond tax credits, or Clean Renewable Energy bonds. And there is $1.6 billion allocated for this bonding capacity. The credit is set by the IRS, and it's set to limitations. So a third of this money can go to public power, a third of it can go to government, state governments, and a third can go to cooperative utilities. And what can it be used for? It can be used for wind projects, it can be used for biomass projects, it can be used for geothermal, solar, landfill gas, waste energy, and qualified hydropower. Now, here's what this bond does. One is that, let's just say the state wants to issue a bond for some type of solar project, large-scale solar project. What the bond does is that it's a zero-interest bond, but it's zero-interest financing. So this money comes to the state at zero interest. The buyer of the bond gets a tax credit. So in essence, you're buying a tax equity because you're being allowed to have zero interest financing for a project, and you're getting a tax credit for the entity buying these bonds. And these bonds, hasn't been that much used in the past, but there's been a lot of discussion recently about different entities looking at these. Also, what's changed too is that, as many of us are very likely aware, there are investment tax credits for renewable projects, and there are production tax credits for renewable projects. And the investment tax credits are a 30% tax credit, federal tax credit, for projects that are solar, geothermal, fuel cells, turbines, small wind, CHP. Typically, you would claim 30% of that if you're a business and you're going to take advantage of that tax credit. Well, in lieu of taking that tax credit, you can now take a direct grant from the Department of Treasury. So if you've got a project, and let's just say we're doing a 5-megawatt solar project, and you were looking at perhaps taking this 30% investment tax credit. Well, in lieu of taking a tax credit, you can just take straight cash from the Department of Treasury. So you can just write off 30% of that because you're going to get it right back. There's no cap on that. And there's been no cap on the tax credit either. So that is a new change. The production tax credit is a kilowatt-hour tax credit that has been available for wind and solar and geothermal and biomass. Were extended to 2012 and 2013. And then the residential energy efficiency credit was amended. It used to be that if you did just windows in your house, you could claim up to, it was a couple $100. Or if you did a high-efficient HVAC system, you can claim a couple $100. But what it's done is first, it's extended the tax credits through 2010. And secondly, it now aggregates to a 30% credit. So in your home, if you want to do, maybe you need to do a few windows, some insulation, and an HVAC system. Instead of going for one, or going singularly for these credits, it now aggregates them up to $1,500. So you have a max of $1,500 you can claim, or 30% of the project cost, whatever it may be. The last bonding capacity I want to talk about are what are called qualified energy conservation bonds. And there's been an allocation of $3.2 billion from DOE for these qualified energy conservation bonds. Once again, these bonds are the same as what I talked about before with clean renewable energy bonds. They are zero interest financing for projects with a tax credit given to the buyer of that bond. Now, they're very broad in what you can do. They're focused on reducing carbon footprint, implementing green community programs, rural development of renewables, technology to reduce energy, green building technologies, and the state or a local bonding authority would be the one that issues these bonds. And you can push these out into the community. So it's not just it doesn't have to be just a state project or a local government project. It could be a private sector project. but the issuer of the bond has to be a local government. I'm going to run kind of through a lot of these pieces. I just said quite a bit of this, but there's a couple things. One, you have to reduce energy consumption by 20%. You can implement a green community development program. You can do renewable projects. You can do a production facility, meaning you can do a large-scale renewable project. You can do research. You can do with facilities, and you can do research grants. You can look at ethanol projects. You can look at capture and storage for carbon emissions. You can look at energy efficiency retrofitting for technologies. You can do automobile battery technologies. You can do reduction in just buildings through energy efficiency projects. And you can also look at mass commuting facilities. So how can you look at the transportation sector and use some of these dollars? I'm going to skip this because it's every page, sorry. You can also do public education campaigns. So it's very, very broad in terms of the effort that this money can be used for. I have two last slides, and I want to open up to question and discussion. Many people always talk about why has Germany done it? How come everyone looks at Germany and says they are the most green country in the world? They put solar. Those that follow the solar world know that Germany has the most solar deployed across any country. These are recent numbers that have come out. So this is a job creation discussion. The last 5 years, Germany's created 250,000 green jobs in the renewable energy sector, and 50,000 of that has come just from wind power. And so what have been the drivers for that? Well, one, there's been heavy regulatory influence. There's been quite a few incentives. There's been things like ticketing, including cars. There's been competitions between cities and counties. There's been public education campaigns. There's been immense training. And what does it mean in terms of creating an economy for the country? Well, one thing is that all this does come with a cost, and it's costing about $38 per year per family, but it's generating $240 billion in annual revenue. So the benefit here is outweighing the cost. It's creating a new economy, it's working, and the regulatory sort of push to make it happen is the driver here. And then lastly, on this note, is that the state of Florida, the governor has a climate energy bill that's going through the process now. And it's looking at, and it's basically an RPS, Renewable Portfolio Standard for the state. And it's looking at the supply mix of different renewables for the state in terms of energy production. Well, they just ran some numbers to look at the impact of what that bill would have if it's enacted in the state. So this is looking at just from 2009 to 2025. If the bill passes in terms of creating this renewable supply need, it will immediately create 148,000 net jobs immediately. It will create $38 billion in increase in gross state product, $28 billion in net economic savings from the new energy efficiency actions. And so the point here is that we are looking at a new economy. We're looking at a extremely changing paradigm. We're also about to experience the most we've seen ever spent on energy in the next 2 years because of all this money that's coming into the States. And we have to look at it and think about it and find the opportunities so that we can take advantage of it, sustain it, and see and hope the impacts are sustained. So with that, I ran through a lot of information. I want to open to questions and discussion. Yeah.
You mentioned the state grant program for weatherization efforts, and you said states with South Carolina push the money out to what you call community action agencies. What is a community action agency? Would that include a locally managed one?
It depends on, it's a good question, and I think and I don't know the exact answer here if United Way would be included. My guess
probably
is
not.
No. These community action agencies are typically a nonprofit group that's within a